United States submarine base at Key West, Florida. A dispatch that quoted President Truman's press secretary, Charles Ross, as saying that President Truman has no knowledge of any secret project by this government that would give substance to the existence of such objects. Ross also said that both the Air Force and the Navy deny that such objects exist.
Oh, hey.
Hey, I always wait for you to go first.
I know. I had something. I am that... Hey, what's up? My name is Noelle, and I am that hangnail that you go to rip, and then it feels like you have peeled off 1/3 of your skin.
And I'm Chelsea. I'm a colloquial text.
Yeah, you carry, Chelsea. What are we doing today?
This one started out a little different, and it started out as an episode about eunuchs, because I thought it would be applicable in the current climate. But unfortunately,
Do you want to explain what those are?
No. So
What do you mean?
men. So we switched gears a little bit to talk maybe into an episode that has a little bit more levity. Levity only if you want to die. Very serious if you want to live.
Okay.
So we're gonna go have a good one.
Okay.
So we're going to start with a brief history lesson, which is funny because I didn't want to do the eunuch episode because it was just pure history, and then we immediately go into history.
Hey, I'm not complaining. I like history.
Yeah, sometimes we play ourselves, though.
You know, if you don't pay attention to history, you're doomed to repeat it.
You're right. 100% right. And only God can judge me. So, in the Middle Ages, there were various terms for Satan that people at the time really took to heart. One of the most common ways he was depicted was as a surrogate to anything outside the purview of the church, which came down to it is obviously anything that isn't Christian is going to be associated with evil.
So kind of how it's looked at today.
Yeah, we haven't changed at all.
Yeah, no.
Satan's depicted a little bit more cute in modern times, I would say. But at this time, that's when we had like the fun demons who had like a devil anus. Was some of the art that I saw that was really pretty. So that's where we get all the neat Monty Python looking art. And when we look back on that, we can really see how people then viewed Satan. He was otherworldly, and he showed what a life of sin could do to twist one's appearance. He was creepy, beast-like, and a little metal. The art
Can I
depicted
just
him
say here, now, right now, in this time and moment, we've talked about this before lightly when we talk about our favorite representations of the devil, but to me, these situations scream nothing of peace and love, hypocrisy, because it's like, if you're going to sit here and say that the devil is all temptation and the devil will try to lure me with, living deliciously, if you will, like, why would he be a creepy beast-like nasty creature? He would be a sexy suave because he's trying to get me to join his crew. He's trying to get me to sell my soul. He's trying to butter me up. Like, why would he be a nightmare beast? That's so projecting. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that is not what the devil would look like if he was real.
Yeah, it was just like a visual way to represent something that sounded super appealing. And people are like, I don't know how to read, so there's a shitty thing here, and then all these beautiful people on the church side over here.
You are actually 100% correct about that. That's exactly why.
But but also you are right. There is a hypocrisy or like a dissonance in there, right? Where you're like, what is it? Is it super appealing or is it twisted and grotesque?
Yeah.
Can't have both. I guess you can if you're Satan.
Apparently.
So, in a thesis written by Morgan Mados, it was called The Satanic Phenomenon, Medieval Representations of Satan. They make the argument that as Christian theology grew, so did the idea of the devil. And something that is interesting in this growth is that while God tends to stay the same, Satan is instead in a, quote, constant state of flux being shaped and altered by historical, societal, and cultural changes.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
You've got, like, to me, if the Bible is this literary piece that's always trying to hang on to modernization, then you just change the like antagonist to match whatever your current day antagonist is.
Yeah.
You know?
So in modern day now, it's
Gay marriage.
transgender people.
Yeah, transgendered people and birth control and hot e-girls in pleather skirts online.
Yeah, it's interesting the way that like our biggest fears tend to become taboo as history progresses.
Mm-hmm.
And this tends to be why, when we look back on history, we tend to interpret a lot of historical ideas through the lens of the Christian and the other. One primary example is that during the Middle Ages, the black man has generally been accepted as the devil. The downside to people taking these euphemisms is that it could be looping things into Christianity that don't really belong there. Let's take a look at the black man again and dive into a little history specifically curated by author Jim Keith. In 1520, 2 shepherds were burned at the stake after murdering 5 people and then eating them. During their outcry, they said that they were met by a tall, dark man who they believed to be the devil's bondsman. After the meeting, they uncharacteristically went on to commit their mini massacre and feast. And if you look further...
If I had a bunch of people, that's also what I'd say, though. I would also say that, like, the devil told me to do it.
Yeah, I'd be like, obviously, I'm innocent here.
Yeah, obviously, I'm a victim. The devil came to me and told me to eat people, so...
And in the 1500s, you probably had to kill and eat a person or 2. They weren't doing well then.
And in the 1500s, do you know how easy it would be to look like a constable dead in the eye and be like, I hate to be the one to tell you this, but this was actually the works of the devil. And then they're like, fuck, you're so right.
It's like, you're the 100th customer of the devil. If you look further at some of the other people who are killed as witches, sacred-text.com has a list of people who have all been put to death for witchcraft. And if you look through these lists, you'll be sure to find one Catherine Dory, who was executed in France in 1577. Her story is similar to that of the cannibal shepherds, who said that after being visited by a tall, dark man, Catherine murdered her own child.
Or, hear me out. Hear me out.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe she had... What is it called when you have depression after having a baby?
Postpartum.
Postpartum, yes. Mm-hmm. Postpartum. Whatever, I mean, this is not a PC sentence I'm about to say. But if you've ever sat on a 5+ hour flight with a screaming baby, all of a sudden, those news stories about mothers putting their babies in ovens and microwaves and driving their minivans into the ocean don't seem that crazy anymore.
No.
So, you know.
Especially when it goes on for days and days and days, and you're like, this little fucker doesn't even like me.
Yeah. Also, speak to a mental health professional if you are feeling those thoughts. They are normal and healthy. Don't be like Catherine and murder your child and blame it on the devil. But I'm just saying, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Paints a picture.
Like, don't murder your kids.
Yeah, don't do that.
Yeah. So, on another occasion, during the North Berwick witch trials, one John Fian was accused of bewitching the townsfolk of the area and even trying to kill King James VI and his wife Anne of Denmark. And of course, this one has a little bit more information because of the documented torture that happened after his accusation. Specifically, John had his fingernails ripped off and then pins were shoved in as replacements.
Oh, that is creative.
His thumbs had screws applied to them in a contraptions called pillywinks.
Pillywinks? Pillywinks is like a magical mouse that meets you on a journey and like gives you a map to gold. Did you look what a pillywinks is?
Yeah, it's like those big brass things and they put a screw down on your thumbs until it shatters them.
Yeah, it presses down. It's like a tofu press.
A full Giles Corey on each hand.
Yeah.
Bah, bah, bah. So that happened. He had his feet crushed in a method called booting until they were so small that they were completely unusable and too small to even walk on, even if they did heal. He was strangled and burnt and eventually died on January 27th, 1591. And the most notable thing about John's torture was that he claimed he had been visited by a tall, dark man who kicked off his entire tour de witchery. Fian stated that this man had come to him in all black and who was able to vanish from his sight in a bright light. And while I feel like you and I are well versed in witchcraft and whatnot,
sure.
What are some of the tests that they would use?
To find a witch?
Yeah.
They would they would tie you to a chair or bind you and throw you into a body of water. And this was always a rough test because if you sank, it proved that you were not a witch. But that would also mean that you're drowning and dying. And if you floated, it would mean you are a witch. So if you tried to stay afloat and save yourself or prove that you could swim, like you would fucking die.
Yeah, you were dead. Damned
yeah,
if you do, damned if you don't, really.
They would also look for a third nipple because they said that it was for your familiar to latch onto and feed. There's God. There something about the Bible. I guess you weigh them against a stack of Bibles. You make a witch cake and like make a fucking dog eat it, which that one was always the worst one. A witch cake is like you make the accused witch like piss in a cake. In a cake batter, and then they bake the cake, and then I'm pretty sure it's like if a dog eats it, you are a witch. I very
is
much
wild.
You've never heard of that one?
No.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay, hold on. Let me look up how to make a witch cake. Hold on. What is a witch cake, you ask? It's definitely something you don't want to eat. You take the urine of the people who are. Oh, this is where pardon. If anyone was following my directions to a T just a few seconds ago on how to make a witch cake, please adjust and edit. I mixed up some steps.
I'm editing it out.
Okay, please. Well, no, just on your notes, because clearly everyone was taking notes of the instructions.
I command Z'd it.
You take the urine of the people who are thought to be under the spell of the witch in question, mix it with rye meal, and make a little patty. Then you feed the patty to a dog. Because some of the powers the witch used to cast a spell on the affected people were in their urine. When the dog eats the cake, it will hurt the witch and she will cry out in agony. So.
Okay. I would just pretend that I was in agony then.
Well, then that would prove that you were a witch. But it's weird because it's like, I feel like that last part might be wrong on this mental floss article. Because
then you just stand there and nothing happens. And
yeah, he was just like, yeah, I think it was like if the dog eats it, you are, or something like that. There's also making them recite the Lord's Prayer, which was a fun one that was also thrown out a lot in the Salem witch trials because they would literally do it and then they'd be like, well, anyway, still a witch.
Yeah, all that proves is that the devil taught them the Lord's Prayer.
Yeah.
The devil taught them to read.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, and those are just the ones off of the top of my head.
Yeah, so I'm glad that you mentioned the third nipple, aka like a witch mark. Mm-hmm. Essentially, anything on your body they could claim was a symptom of
a mole, a birthmark, a third nipple. Mm-hmm. Some people do have them.
Mm-hmm. So, according to History.com, witch hunters often had their suspects stripped and publicly examined for signs of an unsightly blemish that witches were said to receive upon making their pact with Satan. This devil's mark could supposedly change shape and color and was believed to be numb and insensitive to pain.
It's just a cancerous fucking mole. Just like all these poor fucking people had skin cancer and it was just like changing shape and color and getting bigger. And then they were like, a witch! And it was just massive suffering. You're muted.
I know, yeah, I realized. A little pop-up was like, no one can hear you. Yeah, just like anything that you're born with, and then, yeah, like a cancerous nipple. Like you have cancer and you're going to be burned to the stake. Yeah. It's a 1-2 punch.
Yeah.
And this one has a little bit more detail on what they would look for or what they would document as people who had been witches would experience. So there would be triangular or square-shaped scars, bruises, or rashes on them. They would have chronic or severe nosebleeds or sinus problems.
You're dead, bitch.
I know, the chronic migraine headaches.
You're a dead bitch.
Erratic menstrual cycles or pregnancies that would turn out to be false alarms.
I feel like no one back then knew what a false alarm pregnancy was. I feel like people were just, Well,
but like imagine if you had like a hysterical pregnancy and then you gave birth to nothing.
Maybe.
Yeah, there'd be chronic medical conditions related to reproductive organs, marks or pinpricks behind the ears, sometimes also appearing in a triangular configuration, or unusual or unexplained marks, scars, patterns, or bruises that suddenly manifest on the back or along the spine. I also, just anybody who exists gets bruises.
Yeah,
On
you
their
just
back.
have a rash. Could you imagine?
Yeah.
You just like laid down in your shitty little hay bed and got a rash, and then you were fucking put into an Iron Maiden the next day and
Yeah.
tortured to
I
death.
have like a single freckle on the palm of my hand, enough to kill me then.
Yep, that's enough evidence.
I
to
feel like
put
I
you
would
to
just
death.
cheese grate off every mark I had, but then they started using scars too.
Oh, yeah. See?
I would be screwed.
Yeah.
Even if I wasn't covered in bruises, I'd be screwed because it's
Yeah.
like any mole, any freckle.
Any
No.
sinusy, nasally person.
I know. Maybe I was like talking out of my nose every episode. Yeah, I'd be screwed with a witch's mark.
Yeah.
Okay, hold on. I think I'm confused on my notes. Because we are talking about how to track down witches and people accused of witchcraft, right? That's where we left off?
Yeah. We just went over the different.
Okay. It got away from me just a little bit.
Just so everyone
Witch
knows,
marks.
Chelsea ate an edible. Chelsea ate
I
an
did
edible.
not.
Chelsea ate an edible, and now she can't read. And you know,
I
Take
know. I
away.
think I think I know I'm confused, and it's not your blatant lies about me.
I think I know why you're confused as well. And
No.
it is
It's because no. Listen, it's fucking listen to me. It's because the second example that I read to you wasn't actually evidence of what people looked for in witchcraft trials.
What do you mean?
What I read to you was what you actually look for after people have been abducted by aliens.
You stupid bitch! You confused yourself with that.
No. Because what we're talking about, we weren't the tall black man. We weren't talking about the fucking devil, Noel. We weren't talking about Satan. Let's rewind a little bit. There were 3 cases that we mentioned previously. The
Yeah.
shepherds who went cannibal, the
Yeah.
lady who killed her kid, and the
Yeah.
man who tried to kill a king. They all have very interesting details in common. The tall black men weren't the devil. The tall black men were the fucking men in black.
Oh my god! Are you trying to tell me right now that the witch trials were aliens?
I'm trying to tell you that people had gnarly experiences, were visited by the men in black, and then were accused of witchcraft very closely after. The men in black are not a modern phenomenon. They have been around since at least the 1500s.
Let me chew on this some more.
I tricked you. I tricked you.
God, see this hurts me a tiny bit because I do love the idea, and I feel like we've talked about it before, that like Jesus and the alien, or Jesus, Freudian slip, Jesus and the angels are aliens. Like whenever they talk about angels coming down to Earth, it's just aliens. That the Bible is just like referencing.
They don't know how to describe beings from above, so they say angel. Yeah.
Exactly.
You feel gooped by that? I thought
Well,
that was
no.
actually a really cool twist in the episode that we were talking about men in black visiting people in medieval times this whole time.
No, I know. I do love it. I do love it. It's also just like, ugh. I like the sexy devil. I don't want it to be a creepy alien.
It can be, why not both?
I guess.
So something we've covered extensively in a previous episode was how there's a pretty good argument that the Grim Reaper was actually an alien. So to quickly recap, quote from binallofamerica.com, the Grim Reaper, or Death as we have come to know him, carries a scythe and lurks in the outermost edges of mortality, donning a long, dark hooded cloak, oftentimes skeletal in appearance. And where and when this image of death came to be is as almost a point of interest as the role that death plays in many ancient disasters. The fact is that the Grim Reaper is considered a sentient being, an entity that has actually been seen prior to catastrophic events. During the Black Death, eyewitnesses claimed that a being in a dark cloak carrying a scythe that is seemed to emit some sort of like gas or poisonous gas coming out of it could be seen just outside the town's border. And in fact, throughout Asia and Europe, just as the plague was spreading, reports of Grim Reaper type beings were making the rounds. And Noel, remind me, please. Who always show up after you see the fucking aliens?
The Men in Black, man. The Men in Black, they come to your house and they question you.
Yep, the fucking Men in Black. Interesting how these things just happen to line up throughout history and we still see them.
Could be a synchronicity, right? Could be.
And guess what plague was going through France when we made all of these, when we mentioned all that different evidence? The fucking bubonic plague, baby.
God fucking damn, dude.
So to make things more interesting with the witch's mark and the Men in Black is that despite the interpretation that these men were the devil, the marks have stayed consistently described throughout history. Oftentimes, we are a little guilty, though, of thinking of witches' marks as something organic that we would have been born with, like moles or freckles. Sometimes we even go further, being a simple bruise or now and then the third nipple. But this can be a fallacy when you consider that many of these historic accounts sound eerily similar to modern-day abduction stories. So in fact, in 1665, a man named Christian Green was placed on trial for witchcraft. And during these investigations, the investigators noticed several marks upon his body that did not seem to be organically created. He then mentioned that he had had his fingers pricked and even needles pushed between his fingers, and that he was visited by a man in black who spoke to Christian about this encounter. Again, author Jim Keith dives into this information and highlights that many of these trials showed victims who had similar injuries, and the most distinctive ones were the, quote, flesh is sunken and hollow, often reflecting an area where the skin appeared to be scooped out. The interesting thing here is that if you look up modern evidence of alien abductions, you often see people showing scars that would have been described in the exact same way.
Very delicious. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does. It's like Chelsea's attached some pictures, and yeah, it does look like literally like a little scoop out of the skin.
Yeah, like a little ice crater scoop.
Yep, exactly.
So, just what UFO Insight states is that, quote, these mysterious, dark, tall men who crop up in the accounts we've examined above are none other than men in black of modern times, then just how long have they been on Earth, and just what are their reasons for being here? While they are synonymous with UFO and alien encounters in the 20th and 21st centuries, they are seemingly connected to witchcraft and the worshipping of the devil in the Middle Ages. Might this suggest a connection between such things as witchcraft, demons, and devil worship hundreds of years ago, with the apparent visitation of aliens visiting the world in the modern era?
I want to love aliens are the devil so bad, but I am such a sucker for the devil PR. I am such a sucker for cloven hooved monsters and sexy men in suits. It pains me. Mm-hmm. This pains me just a tiny bit, because I could believe that maybe it's my broken brain, maybe it's the lead in the water, but I can believe so much more that everything biblical is just aliens.
It's weird when you compare and contrast like experiences in history or experiences in the Bible, how most of it could be explained away from aliens.
Yeah. It makes more sense if it does. All the supernatural shit just becomes like, oh, aliens.
And then you could easily draw the conclusion that religion is just science fiction.
Yeah.
It's all aliens in the end.
Well, I mean, yeah. And I mean, that's why biblically accurate angels look the way they do. They're just fucking aliens.
Yeah, or just alien spacecraft. The wheel one, for sure.
For sure, 1,000%.
So, while there are many, many accounts of people who claimed tall men in black visited them just before they were put to death, let's dive into the most modern 20th century account of the Men in Black and how their existence had become synonymous with silencing witnesses of strange paranormal phenomena. So on July 27th, 1947, a man named Harold Dahl was gathering logs near the eastern shore of Washington's Maury Island. That's where you go to find out if you're the father of your baby or not.
Nice one.
Thank you. So it wasn't too long before he noticed 6 donut-shaped objects hovering in the sky above his boat. Suddenly, one of the objects fell about 1,500 feet and was followed by some sort of metallic shrapnel, which quickly overcame the boat. Unfortunately, Dahl's son and dog were also hit. And in our hearts, the dog survived.
Oh, God damn it, Chelsea.
I'm sorry. So during the ordeal, Dahl was able to take a few photographs, which he later showed to his boss, a man named Fred Krisman. What happens next was outlined in a book by Gray Barker called They Know Too Much About Flying Saucers. According to his research, the next day Dahl was in a diner when he was joined by a man in a black suit. The man stared in an eerie way at Dahl before recounting in strangely specific details what he knew Dahl had seen the day prior on his boat. The man told Dahl, quote, what I have said to you is proof to you that I know a great deal more about this experience of yours than you will want to believe. And then he said that if he spoke of the incident again, bad things would happen. So of course the traditional hoax theories would come out, but something that could not be faked was a series of events set off after Dahl and his supervisor reached out to a magazine hoping to sell their story. The magazine editor then reached out to a pilot named Kenneth Arnold, who had had his own UFO sighting a mere 3 days after Dahl's Maury Island experience. Arnold knew the game with the military, though, and he called in the brass to investigate. So in July 1947, 2 Army intelligence officers came to interview Dahl and Crimson. They took detailed notes, reviewed the evidence, compiled a report, and this report, had it been released, would have inevitably proven the existence of UFOs and the Men in Black once and for all. Except that didn't happen, because when the 2 officers boarded their B-25 after conducting their interviews, the plane caught fire and tragically crashed, obviously leaving no survivors.
How convenient. How convenient.
So the magazine editor that Dahl had originally reached out to began looking further into claims from the Men in Black that Dahl had spoken about. He eventually stumbled across an account from a man named Albert Bender, who claimed he had also been visited by 3 Men in Black in 1953.
Wait, hold on. Before we get to that. So he said that he was able to take pictures. Were those pictures fucking destroyed in that goddamn crash?
Yeah, they had to have been. I couldn't find pictures.
I couldn't. Okay. Anyway.
And like the pictures of what happened to his dog and what happened to his son with all the shrapnel.
Well, I don't want to see those,
gone. Yeah.
But
well,
oh my god! Oh my god! The shrapnel falling from the sky and killing his son and his dog. That is literally Nope, dude.
It is Nope.
That is literally Nope.
Oh my gosh,
wow.
That's like exactly what happened.
Okay.
So, according to History.com, Barker described Bender's visitors as 3 men in black suits with threatening expressions on their faces. 3 men who walk in on you and make certain demands. 3 men who know that you know what the saucers really are. Bender, in his own 1962 book called Flying Saucers and the 3 Men, described the Men in Black in much more frightening language. He said they floated about a foot off the floor. They looked like clergymen, but wore hats similar to the Homburg style. Their faces were not clearly discernible, for the hats partly hid and shaded them. The eyes of all 3 figures suddenly lit up like flashbulb lights, and they seemed to burn into my very soul as the pains above my eyes became almost unbearable. Sounds like some of the accounts, when you look back on history, the tall black men dressed in black. We're going to delete that part out.
No, you're
Sounds
not.
like the accounts
no,
when you look back at the tall black women dressed
Don't be a bitch, leave
it. Doesn't it?
Leave it. I'm refusing to let you redo it. You have to.
All right, I'll leave it in.
Okay, thank you.
I wanted to end on such a good note.
The edible bee. She
Don't know
really
what you're talking about.
She really said, sounds like back at the tall black dress men in black.
Is that fun though?
That is fun. That is fun.
Even just like accounts of angels, like their eyes burn into your soul. You can't look directly at them. So fun. I would love to think that the men in black have been here from the jump.
It's the unfortunate pill that I do not want to swallow, but probably will have to. That, the Bible is just aliens.
Yeah.
And
my favorite one is how the Grim Reaper does tie into it, because obviously he's coming down doing alien shit, and then the men in black come and tell these people things that they're not ready to hear, and then they go fucking nuts, so everyone's like, witchcraft it is. And then they would see the signs that they were abducted and use that as their witches' marks.
It's unfortunate. As much as I, peace and love again, as much as I hate the institution that is religion, it is my favorite little piece of candy to chew on. It is just, there is just something about it that is so aesthetically pleasing. And, having to give up that ghost and admit to myself that it might just be aliens it'll take me a few nights to be okay with it, but I do accept it.
Just chew on it a little bit.
Yeah, I will.
A little gumdrop.
Why do I feel heartbroken about it? Maybe I wanted the devil to be real.
Well, doesn't this make the devil more real to you, in your opinion? Of your belief?
No, because I want it to be like Little Nicky. I want him to be down in hell on a throne with a big-tittied henchman.
It could still be that. He could be reptilian.
Yeah.
Also alien.
I guess that's true.
That's where the tail came from.
It's, it just is what it is. These are the hard truths that we have to take.
Growing up is hard.
It's
like
hard.
Finding out Santa Claus isn't real.
Yeah, having to admit that maybe the devil is just an alien is like walking downstairs on Christmas Eve and seeing your parents putting the presents underneath the tree.
Yeah. Disheartening. But, I'm excited to welcome you into this venture of fun conspiracy that hurts no one.
I mean, true. I mean, maybe some people will be hurt by this knowledge like I am, and maybe the rest of them will once again find their childlike sense of wonder.
I hope that. And I hope that the books that they hear about on this podcast lead them down the same dark journey we often find ourselves.
Yeah. I hope that the books that you find from this episode lead you to an empty field in the middle of Nevada with your dearest friends and a telescope, and not on a QAnon forum on 8chan losing your family.
That's all I want to.
That's all I want. Yeah. So in that case, more things that you could want. Maybe merch. And you can find that link in all of our bios. We are at Go to Hell Podcast. I am at Noelle Fain. That is at Sithlard. You can get our merch. You can get links to our Discord server. You can get links to Kelly Holloran or at Wildwood Owl on Etsy. The cool stuff that she makes for us and the cool stuff she makes for herself, honestly. And we have a bunch of other shit on there too. Check it out. Check that shit out. And oh my fucking god, Patreon. That's the one that I was missing.
Oh man, this
Patreon.
One's a doozy this week.
It's a heavy one. It's a heavy one. $1 gets you in. There are definitely funnier ones to listen to. But head on down. And it's tough for me to say it right now in this moment as I digest this new information. But I ain't a quitter. So hail Satan.
And I'm gonna say, hail season 3 of Love Is Blind. Kept me on my toes.
Ooh,
Kept me on my toes.
I know that we're ending the episode right now, but I'm like barely on episode 2 because I got sidetracked on a side quest because one of the douchiest men on the show mentioned sexual kung fu, and my
Andrew,
mom,
yes.
yeah, my mom has the audacity to look to me and go, "What is sexual kung fu?" And I said, "Oh boy, do I have a video for you." Because Andrew Callahan from Channel 5 on YouTube interviewed one of the biggest practitioners of sexual kung fu. Go check it out. So I made her watch that, and then I just was like, guess what? Now you have to sit here and watch all of these Channel 5 videos. And it was fucking fantastic. So yeah, I'm a little behind on Love is Blind, but I've been seeing some terrible headlines about it, so I can't wait.
It's good. Also, hail your mom. What a classic.
Yeah. Hail Amy.
All right. Bye.
Bye.